Hi there guys, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel and me sitting very awkwardly at my desk in order to film this video. In November for NaNoWriMo I wrote 95,000 something or other words in 31 days, which is unprecedented for me. I've never had that level of anything in my entire life, and bearing in mind I was ill for at least 5 of those days. Today's video I am going to talk a little bit about motivation and productivity while writing, whether it is for NaNoWriMo or Camp NaNoWriMo, whether it is for school, whether it is just for fun, whether you have a deadline or not, and sort of talk about how I managed for the first time in my entire life remain motivated for however many days it was until I got sick. The first thing I'm going to say is that there are no secrets to productivity or motivation. Every writer is different. I'm gonna preface this by saying that this is not advice in regards to productivity and motivation. This is based on my personal experiences and what I did during November and the tools I used in order to increase my own productivity and motivation. This is not me telling you what to do, because it might work for you, it might not. It's something for you to give it a go. So to help my motivation and productivity in November, I used a lot of tools in order to help me do this. The first one was using writing sprints. Writing sprints is the one thing I will always use when I am drafting. I suppose you can call it fast drafting a novel, because when I do writing sprints I always pay attention to my word count, and I always try and beat my previous sprint's word count to sort of challenge myself and try and get more words than I did last time. That sort of forces me to write more without thinking about what I'm actually writing, because thinking about the quality and thinking about if things make sense slows me down and sort of stops my productivity and my motivation right there, and it doesn't work for me. The second thing I did was used an outline. Outlines are, you know, it either works for you or it doesn't. Having an outline worked for me while drafting. It did not work for me in the fact that I didn't really have an outline for most of the novel. But when I did have an outline and was going off of a detailed outline for the chapters, I wrote more because I already knew what I was going to write. I used writing prompts. They're here. I don't know if this is on screen. I used writing prompts, some words, some dialogue, and if I was feeling stuck I'd pick one of the writing prompts and just write to what it was. If it fit into my novel, fantastic. If it didn't quite fit, I could still keep what I'd written and then I could make it fit at a later date. Pinterest. Pinterest is my rabbit hole. I have a lot of images saved for inspiration and aesthetic and mood boards for all aspects of Project Floral, all of the different kingdoms, all of the characters, just general sort of inspiring images to sort of get my juices flowing, locations, things like that if I was having trouble. So I would scour Pinterest, not scour Pinterest, I would scour the boards I have saved and sort of let the images inspire and motivate me in order to write some more. ASMR. I listen to ASMR. I suppose when I say I listen to ASMR, I only listen to fluffy microphones with no talking, because it sounds like the wind or it sounds like the ocean, and it gives me great white noise and sort of helps me focus. What I usually do is put on a 30-minute video for ASMR and then write until it's finished, and that's my 30-minute writing sprint. Took lots of breaks. I took lots and lots of breaks during NaNoWriMo. I only wrote half of my daily word count on days. I took entire days off. Anytime that I was feeling sort of stressed or felt that I was starting to burn out or just didn't feel like writing, I didn't write. Because there's nothing worse for motivation trying to write when you really don't want to. And it doesn't make you very productive if you feel like writing is a chore, if it feels like a job. You sort of get to the point where it's like, I really don't want to write, I hate writing, this is so stupid, and it just rarely works out well for people forcing themselves to write. But speaking of that, because I'm sort of going to be a little hypocritical at the moment, I always write even if I'm not feeling motivated. There is a difference between writing when you're not quite feeling motivated and writing when you really don't feel like writing mentally. There were times when I sort of burnt myself out from the day before writing lots, and I could feel the creativity was not there, and I'd open my document and creatively I was not motivated to write. And there were days where I was tired or was just not bothered, or I was in a bad mood and I physically was not motivated to write. When I'm physically not motivated to write, I make myself write, even if it's for 5 minutes, even if it's just a sentence, because that is still making progress, no matter how small it is. And usually I end up writing for a little bit more and getting down more words than I wanted to. Usually sort of the motivation picks up as I force myself to write those few little words. It doesn't always work like that, so if after 5 minutes you really don't want to, then don't. That's how I differentiate between my different levels of motivation. If I am especially stuck, I will spend 5 minutes before I go into writing bullet pointing my scene out. This is sort of separate from my outline if I have an outline. If I don't have an outline, the bullet points will be my outline. Basically trying to think in my head and sort of picture it, because I'm a very visual person. I will visualize scenes happening in my head, and I'll sort of bullet point where the scene needs to start, where the scene needs to end, and bullet point events or snippets of conversation that need to happen in that scene in order for me to sort of know where I'm going, even if I don't quite know in between the points. I'll just make that up as long as I hit those points that I need to hit. I will always start writing a novel chronologically, and I'll keep writing chronologically until I lose inspiration, which is usually around the end of the first act, which is also coincidentally usually as far as I have detailed outlined, because I suck at outlining. And then after that I will write whatever scene I feel like writing in that particular moment in any order that I want to. This way I'm always writing something that interests me, I'm writing something that I want to, I'm writing something I know will keep up my productivity and my motivation. I'll write the scenes that I'm looking forward to the most, or the scene that I've had stuck in my head for ages. And if you haven't outlined, it might make for a little bit of a skewy plot afterwards, and you may get left with all of the boring scenes right at the end, which is a pitfall to try not to fall into. But I always try and write the scenes I want to, and then I'll go and write a scene that I'm not quite as bothered to write, hoping that motivation and productivity will continue on from the fun scene I've just written. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how I'm feeling during the day. It depends on what the scene is that I'm writing. If I'm really stuck, if I don't want to write any of the scenes, if outlining or bullet pointing hasn't worked for me, if Pinterest will not spark any ideas, I will go to my random file. This is a random file folder, wherever it is that I have on Scrivener, where I just write down anything that pops into my head. I've got small bits of scenes, I've got a child crying, there's random scenes, there's snippets of dialogue, or random moments that I have in my head which may or may not fit in with the story, which may or may not have been written, which may be sort of off my outline but still relevant to what I'm writing. And these random things may or may not end up in my novel, but at the end of the day it's still writing, and it keeps me inspired, it keeps me motivated, and I can always rework what I've written in my random file to make it fit into the novel if I need to, if I have to, if I want to. It's still writing at the end of the day. So that is everything that I did personally to ensure my motivation and productivity during NaNoWriMo. It worked for me this month. It might not work for me another time, but they are the things that I did. That is what worked for me, and hopefully some of those could work for you too. The best thing to do is to try and figure out what actually does work for you. Try and make note of the days and times that you feel most productive or you feel most motivated. Try and pinpoint how you were feeling or what happened that day in order to make you feel like that. Did you sleep longer? Did you go for a walk? Did you listen to some really cool music, or did you read? Did you watch a really cool TV show that just got the creative juices flowing? And go from there. There's no magic solution to productivity or motivation. It is really a sort of trial and error, day by day thing that either happens or it doesn't happen. And yeah, I suppose, yeah. I never know how to close videos, so that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Good thoughts and happy writing.